Ever wonder how a TV network knows what millions of people are watching? Or how a snack company knows you're going to love their new chips? Well, they use this kind of superpower called sampling. And it's the secret to understanding huge groups of people without having to talk to every single one of them.
So, to really get why this is such a big deal, let's start with a problem that sounds, well, basically impossible to solve.
Seriously, think about it. How do they actually know which shows are massive hits? I mean, they can't just call up every single person in the country. That would be completely nuts, right?
The answer is way simpler, and honestly, a lot smarter than you might think. They don't even try to ask everyone. Instead, they just take what's called a sample.
But what is a sample, really? Okay, let's break down the big idea behind this seriously powerful tool.
First things first, you gotta know the word population. Now, in research, this doesn't just mean how many people live in a city. The population is the entire group you're interested in. Could be all the teenagers in the country, or maybe every single person who plays a certain video game. Just think of it as the whole pizza.
Now, since you can't talk to millions of people, or, eat that entire pizza by yourself, you take a sample. And that's just a small, carefully chosen piece of that big population. By looking closely at that small group, say 1,000 teenagers, you can get a surprisingly accurate idea of what the entire group of millions thinks. It's kind of like tasting one slice to know if the whole pizza is awesome.
But here is the most important part, the absolute key. The whole goal is to pick a small group that's a perfect miniature version of the big one. We call this a representative sample. If the whole population is half boys and half girls, well, guess what? Your sample needs to be that way too. It has to be a mirror image.
So if you need that perfect mini version, how do you actually pick the people to make sure it's fair? Well, there are a few different ways to do it, and trust me, they are not all created equal.
The best of the best is random sampling. It's basically a lottery. Every single person in the population has a totally equal shot at being chosen, which makes it super fair. The complete opposite of that? Convenience sampling. That's like just asking your friends at the lunch table what they think. Sure, it's easy, but it's also really risky, because your friends' opinions probably don't represent the whole school.
Random sampling is great, for sure. But what if you absolutely have to guarantee that your sample has the perfect mix of different people? Like, what if it's crucial that you hear from the exact same number of freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors?
That's where this really clever method called stratified sampling comes in. It's way more precise. First, you split the whole population into important subgroups. We call them strata, like grade levels. Then, you take a separate random sample from each of those groups. And finally, you combine them all. It's like building the perfect, guaranteed to be balanced sample.
Okay, so even if you pick the right method, there's this huge trap waiting to ruin everything. And that trap is called bias.
Sampling bias happens when your whole method for picking people is flawed, making some people way more likely to get picked than others. Think about it. If you run a survey about internet speeds, but you only advertise it online, who are you going to miss? Right, everyone with slow or no internet. Your results are going to be biased, showing you only what the most connected people think.
Let's see what this looks like. Imagine the population we want to understand is perfectly balanced. 50% boys, 50% girls. That's the truth. That's reality.
But look what happens with bias. If you only surveyed people at a video game tournament, your sample might end up looking like this, 80% boys. Any conclusion you make from this is going to be completely wrong about the population as a whole. You're getting a totally warped picture of reality.
So, avoiding bias is rule number one. But there's another huge rule, sample size. It makes a massive difference. You can't just ask 2 of your friends their opinion and then claim you know what 1,000 people think. As a rule of thumb, the more people you have in your sample, the more reliable and trustworthy your results are going to be.
You see stats like this in the news all the time. A poll finds that 60% of students said they liked the new movie. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But that number by itself doesn't actually tell you the whole story.
To really get it, you need to look for something called the margin of error. See, no sample is ever perfect, and the margin of error tells you the range where the real answer probably is. So a plus or minus 3% margin of error means the true number is likely somewhere between 57 and 63%. The smaller that margin of error, the more precise the result is.
Now, I know this all might sound a little academic, but I promise you, once you know what you're looking for, you will realize that sampling is absolutely everywhere you look. I mean, we rely on it constantly. TV ratings? That's sampling. Scientists testing new medicines? They use a sample. Companies taste testing new snacks? Sampling. Factories checking to see if their products work? Sampling. And of course, election polling. That is the entire game.
So the crucial point, the real takeaway, is this. Sampling is an incredibly powerful and efficient tool. It saves enormous amounts of time and money, but it still lets us make really accurate predictions about what's going on in the world. It helps all kinds of organizations make smarter decisions that affect all of us.
So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you see a news story about a poll, what's the first thing you're going to look for to decide if you can actually trust it? The sample size, the margin of error, or maybe how they found their people in the first place?